We were $1.25 for train fare to New York. So that's where we'd go on weekends. Did you know that a plane had hit the Empire State Building before the other? Yeah, during the war. We went up just a week after the plane crashed into the top of the Empire State Building. And it's right at the level where you get off to take the elevator up to the tip top. And that was oh gosh, I would say the hole was twice the size of that wall, and it was all covered with a tarp. And it was all burnt. All around the edges was burnt. But the pilot got killed. Yeah, he ran into it and got killed. The plane burst into fire. And we got to see that. And then standing on top of the Empire State Building, we got to see them more, the Queen Mary, the ship, how they back it into that was something to watch, how they did that too. All right, how about the Metropolitan Opera? Okay. That was one of the most touching things I think I ever felt in my life. You know who Lily Pons was? Opera star, singer. We heard Lily Pons was singing at the Metropolitan Opera. And so we decided we were going to go up, and then somebody says, oh, you're going to go see how those women are dressed in their gowns, even during the war, and oh my God, these great big cars would pull up, and these men would get out in their tux, and the women dressed to kill, and there we stood in 3 drab brown uniforms, And this little old man, he was standing there, and he was saying, look at that one, she got fat legs. And he says, I like standing here watching these people. He said, I always come out here to watch them. The little old man, he left. He says, I gotta go, I can't stay, I have to go. And so he left, and we're standing there, and the usher came up and said, would you girls like to come in? We says, oh yeah, sure. And he says, well, that little man that you were just talking to just bought all 3 of you a ticket. And we said, what? And he says, yeah, he bought you a ticket. He says, he does this all the time. He says, come on, come with me, I'll take you into your seats. And you know where we sat? Center front, downstairs. And the usher came down, we came in, and we walked down, he says, you have seats, he says, in the 4th row. In fact, we could almost reach out and touch the stage. The touching thing was we started down the aisle with the usher, and every man in that theater stood till we sat down. But we were the only ones in brown drab uniforms in that theater that night. But every man in that place stood. And we were crying like little babies by the time we got down there. The usher, he says, look at the tribute they're paying for you girls. He says, he turned around and he looked up and he says, even in the balcony, he said, every man in this place is standing up. And we said, they're not standing for us, they're standing up for that uniform we got on. So then we sat down and all 3 of us sat there and cried like babies. It was one of the most touching things I think I ever had. And what happened to that little old man, we don't know, but he says he does that all the time. He must have been some wealthy guy that had nothing else to do. But he sure made a beautiful night for us because we never forgot it. They still can't talk about it without crying. It was something. Then we went to President Lyndon Johnson's inaugural ball. And what was his daughter's name? I don't know. She was only about, what, 12, 14 at the time when he was inaugurated. I think around, she just looked young. And one of the girls that we slept with in our bunk, her boyfriend was a doorkeeper. Keep people out that didn't belong in. And so the four of us went down and we got in because we knew the doorkeeper. And we met her. And she took us all around and introduced us all to all the different people. And then she finally got to her father. He seen her and she went like this. And we all went on. He says, "And what are you doing?" And he says, "Are you at it again?" And so we said, "Well, Mr. President, she asked us in." And he says, "It's all right." He says, "It's all right." He says, "Wait till her mother gets a hold of her, though." You know, he was very nice. I says, "Well, something. Sorry, we're not dressed, you know, for this occasion." And he says, "You're the best dressed in here." And there we stood in our brown uniforms with all these women with their beautiful satin gowns. And so her mother came over and introduced herself. And they had a little private room where they put us in there and fed us. And then they called for transportation, took us down to the train station. They couldn't have been nicer to us. We could have been relatives as far as they were concerned. You know, it didn't upset them one bit. It didn't upset it. We just took it for granted. Come on. We're better than you. We got a uniform on. And then she invited us into the White House, the Mrs. Johnson. And so we said the next time we came to to Washington, we'd stop at the White House. And we did. So we went and she wasn't home. But the kid was. The kid took us through the White House. We got to see places that most people didn't get to see. I've been to Mexico, I've been to Baja. I've been way down to the tip of Baja. I've been to Mexico, I've been to Cuba. This friend of mine, her boyfriend, had a plane of his own. He was an Air Force pilot. And on weekends when he was off, he used to take us for rides in his airplane. And we'd go to Cuba, and he'd land, and we'd jump out, jump up and down, and get back in and say, well, we were in Cuba. Went to all the Virgin Islands. Oh, I've been to every state except Rhode Island, and you guess what the other state is. Would you believe West Virginia? It's so close, you know. And I don't know how I ever missed Rhode Island, because I thought I hit every state in the East.